Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson of World Alternative Media here, and we are joined by Larken Rose here in Acapulco, Mexico at Anarcapulco 2017. Now, Larken is, of course, one of the most well-known anarchists out there, especially over the last few years, and I'm really glad to be joined by him once again. Of course, we did host a debate about a week ago with Larken Rose and Victor Pross. It was very entertaining, to say the least, and I'm glad to actually talk to you in person, so thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Now, basically every problem we have, problem people have with anarchy can be answered by individuals rather than collectives. You've spoken a lot about the religion of statism, and people have been pampered by that which abuses them, steals from them, and gives them little gifts with money they stole from others. It's kind of like Stockholm Syndrome. Now, people have become weak and subservient, and have forgotten what they're capable of doing, but instead sitting back for others to do it for them. All of these things they wait for can be done better without the state. The markets could be competitive, innovations would be more than we can ever currently imagine. Money would be more abundant to larger sums of people, monopolies would fall, other sectors of work would be far more available to people, and I can go on and on, of course. So what do you attribute this denial of personal responsibility and ability and religion of statism to, and like what is this in a nutshell?
Well, people are basically trained to not think they're in charge of their own lives, to think that the problems of the world are beyond us mere peasants, and that we need politicians and a ruling class to come up with a master plan and make it happen.
Yeah.
And you can see it in the way people talk when introduce the idea of a stateless society, when they start talking about, well, what about the roads, and which I sort of make fun of, like, really we can make cars and we can make cell phones and all this in the free market without government's help, but somehow we can't make a flat place to drive on.
I know, it's not some great feature of innovation, it's just a road. It's been around for hundreds of years.
Right, and it's really just intellectual laziness and dependency, where people think, well, I don't know how to do it, I want it, they want somebody to come along and do it for them. And so the politician that says, I have a master plan, I'll make your life work, you just bow down to me and pay tribute. Yeah. And most people think that sounds like a good deal, even though they know politicians are crooks. They know taxes are ridiculously high. They know they're funding things they don't like. But to them, that's still less scary than the idea of a free society where normal people have to figure things out. And it's just kind of sad, and it's because they've been trained to see the world that way. I mean, there's... the good news is that it takes years and years of status indoctrination in the schools to make people think that way. This isn't normal. This isn't what people would normally do. Normally they'd grow up and be around their family and be around their neighborhoods, and they would figure out how to do things and figure out how to solve problems, instead of basically being grown-up children who all they can do is, well, I'm going to vote for the politician that says he has an answer to poverty or crime or whatever else.
Absolutely. Well, and it belongs to the mentality of childhood. I often use the example of Santa Claus for reference. People believe that this invisible being is going to come to their house and give them gifts, when really it's their parents that are paying for all of it in the end. And, in a lot of cases, kids want more than the parents can get, but they expect it to just be handed to them. And then their parents end up going broke, but the only difference is their parents aren't being extorted to do so.
Right.
And, what do you attribute with this kind of push over the last, I suppose, year and a half, while there's more anarchists growing? At the same time, there's a lot of former ANCAPs that have kind of switched over to the Trump wagon, or even the Gary Johnson wagon to an extent.
Right.
What do you attribute this to? Is it just people desperate for a little bit of success instead of patience for latter success?
It's usually just fear. I would start by saying I think it's a lot fewer people than it may seem like, because the most vocal, loud, obnoxious people are the ones who get noticed. I actually did an informal, totally unscientific poll of people who followed my Facebook page and said, all right, how many of you became Trump supporters? How many of you were voluntaries before and became Trump supporters? And how many of you still aren't? And the vast majority are still voluntarists, and they're not crying to the state for anything. So part of it is just sort of perception. If you hear a group screaming and being loud all over the place, it seems like they're more prevalent than they are. But there are some, and I think it's really just a matter of fear. And this is something politicians feed off of. They basically just run down the list. What can we scare people about? Can we scare them with the Russians? Well, it doesn't work so much anymore. Illegal Mexicans, Muslims, somebody or something to have them scared of. And unfortunately, the way people are, the saying is fear is the mind killer. If you can find something that freaks people out and they can worry about, whether it's real or imaginary or something in between or just exaggerated, a lot of people will throw their principles out the window and cry for a big authoritarian, Emperor Trump to come and save them from all the scary people from down south or something. And it's sad and it's ridiculous, because when people pretend to believe in freedom and they go running back to that, they're just showing their own cowardice and lack of principle. Like, what we do, you advocate freedom when it's comfortable and easy and you have nothing to lose, but the moment you're sort of scared of something being not quite the way you want it, then you run off to government to save you, and you beg authoritarian power to make the world the way you want it to be.
No motivation, no independence, and it's kind of like that mentality of the new king is always better than the old king. It's been, I think, every campaign since the 1920s in the United States government has been change.
Right.
Change we can believe in, change this, change that.
Right.
And it's just that kind of Machiavellian fear mongering that keeps bringing people back. But I don't know if you're much of a conspiracy theorist, but I have to ask, do you think this is kind of a scripted out, played out agenda that's been put forward for the last several years? Because we see, ISIS getting armed, we see these countries being bombed, and then they have the fear of this blowback, and then they use that to their advantage.
Yeah, I definitely think there's a layer that's intentional. I don't always think the way the game goes is how the puppet masters, if you want to call them that, how they exactly planned it, but they usually have a plan and a backup plan and things. Like, Trump is not at all like anti-establishment outsider. He wouldn't have gotten there if he was. He's play acting.
Yeah.
And it's sad how little people notice how much he's the same as before. And people will hallucinate what they want to hear from a candidate, and he's for freedom. Why do you believe that? He said nothing for freedom. He's pro-police, he's pro-military, he's pro-nationalism, and bordering on fascism, and stop and frisk and asset forfeiture and all these fascist things. And they fell for the same thing. I mean, make America great again. That hope and change. It's the same stupid, vacuous nothing that people fell for to put Emperor Obama in, and now we have Emperor Trump, and what's the difference?
Well, we have the liberals who were so adamantly anti-war and then became suddenly apathetic to it when Obama was bombing.
Whatever. As long as it's it's a black president killing people,
exactly,
you feel okay about it.
And all these so-called conservatives, small government conservatives, that are like, it's okay to grow the government in this way now that Trump's in. Well, let's just sit and be calm and let the same thing happen to us that happened to the liberals because they stayed quiet. And, but you get those two sides of things. You get people that make up stuff about Trump, like, he's going to deport all blacks back to Africa. And then you have the other ones that say Trump is God and he is going to end the Fed or something while putting Mnuchin in the Treasury Secretary. It's just, it's amazing that people keep falling for this. And I keep feeling like we're getting so close, and then it all falls to the side.
Yeah, well, here's the good news. Like, having been an anarchist for 20 years and seeing the overall progression towards voluntarism, it's been massive increase recently, and all the little potholes and bumps and crashes along the way on the sides, they don't matter. No. Like, the alt-right is going to be nothing. The communists are going to be nothing. The Obama supporters are going to be nothing. They're obnoxious, and regimes can do real damage and do real injustice. But the amount of people understanding self-ownership and non-aggression continues to grow. Yeah. So these little temporary fear fits and cheering for this or that politician, to me, that's just sort of irrelevant garbage along the way. And it can be dangerous garbage and stupid garbage, but it's still, to me, what matters is the end of the belief in authoritarianism, and that's still happening. And the stupid, pointless drama of elections and legislation and stuff like that, it isn't going to stop it.
Absolutely. Well, I wanted to ask, what would you say are the top 5 things one should have or know in order to live in a prosperous life in an anarchist world?
In a world that's already anarchist.
Yeah.
Let's see, 5. Well, I think the first is just the ability to compromise and the ability to see other people as their own thing, that they really own themselves. And people, most of these 5 things are what people already do anyway in their daily lives. because people naturally, I'm down here in Mexico, perfect example. I don't speak the language of the people here. We trade, we get along fine. We don't, I've had no problem. We even like strolled around for hours in the poor parts of Acapulco, the back alleys, which is really cool, and the back streets and stuff, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Nobody accosted me. I don't speak their language. They don't speak mine. We got along fine. We bought some stuff.
Yeah, lots of respect.
And if people just sort of treat other people as if they own themselves, instead of thinking like, what are the differences, and are you part of my pack, and then we get along. And again, without a state, I think there's a whole lot less incentive to think in terms of packs anyway. Let's see, number 2, I might say everything is your problem. Like, when people are statists, they get in the mindset that, well, the politicians will do it. When you're in a free society, you suddenly realize, well, if, the thing, well, somebody should do something about this, well, why not you?
Yeah, I'll build the roads.
Right,
Yeah.
you'll build it. You will. And basically be a responsible adult. And that, again, that's something that naturally happens when there's not a ruling class, when there's not a nanny state to hold your hand and do things for you. People figure it out. And you can see it in, like, disaster areas and stuff. It's like, well, now we have to help each other because, the bridges are out and everything. There's nothing else that's going to happen. And let's see, 3. I have to make some up.
Yes.
I guess I'll just throw out the concept of actual tolerance, which statists are never tolerant. But just like, even in the anarchist community, we can bicker and argue about all these conceptual things and all the details and stuff. But at the end of the day, it's just, you do what you want. If you're not attacking me, I'll do what I want. And that allows for, even all the way communist, if you want to go over there and have a commune, cool. If you want to force me into it, we have a problem.
Well, we're accepting people, right? That's a
Right.
lot of the misconceptions that people on the statist right or left don't understand about anarcho-capitalist voluntarists is that we're not stopping you from having your commune or socialist society or conservative society under the social contract, but we get to opt out and we can't be enforced by it.
Right.
And no other ideology allows for everyone to do their own thing as long as they're not hurting or victimizing another person.
Right. And it's, that's built into the term. Voluntarism is, we're going to do it if you're not a voluntarist, by definition, you're an involuntarist, which means violence. Those are the 2 options.
Yeah.
So yeah, actual tolerance of, you go do what you want, don't attack me, don't exploit my stuff or attack me, and we'll get along fine. And that we don't have to be the same. There's so much we can disagree on and so many differences we can have and still peacefully coexist. We don't need it's anarchy isn't, we're all going to believe the same things. We're all going to not believe one really stupid thing, which is if you use violence by way of government, it's okay. So it's just removal of one really dumb, dangerous idea, and then you believe and do whatever you want, and people figure things out.
Well, could I add one of the numbers in here? I was kind of thinking about the idea of self-defense, because of course everyone looks to the military or the police or the government in some way to save them from outside threats or domestic threats. And I feel like in an anarchist society, it's quite important for you to understand that you are in defense of yourself.
Right.
And violence and force is only necessary in the case of self-defense.
Right.
And I feel like that would be something that people should know about in an anarchist society, because so many people are afraid, well, it'll be lawless, everyone's just going to go crazy and attack each other, the chaos, right?
Or they're scared that, well, if we have a defense agency, it'll turn into another government. And it's because they haven't really thought it out. Like, you can hire somebody else to do something you have the right to do. Like, you have the right to do your plumbing, but maybe you don't know how, so you hire somebody else to do it. And maybe you don't have the means or the desire to defend yourself, so you pay somebody else to come running with a gun if you call them. The difference is if you realize that other guy is just a person. He has the same rights that I do. You either have the right of self-defense or you're committing aggression. Doesn't matter if it's you or somebody you hire. And so when people have this notion that, well, if you have defensive companies, they're suddenly going to turn into government. Only if you suddenly imagine they have the right to rule you, which who on earth would do that? They're already private security agencies, and they don't just turn around and turn into the mafia, because all their customers would fire them and then fire at them. So just understanding that we're all people, including in the realm of defensive force. You can do it yourself, you can organize with your neighbors, you can hire somebody else. But nobody has an exemption from morality, and that's the only thing you need to understand to have defense work. I don't understand why so many people don't understand
the concept of everything that we get under the social contract, we could do under the private contract, just without using force against others. Everything's possible. The demand would be higher. There'd be competition and innovation in all these sectors, and it would be so much better than what we have with the government. Well,
the problem is that people don't, belief in government really is a religion, and people really think, it's really muddled in their head, and it's gray and foggy, but they really imagine this thing called government is capable of things that people aren't, or it has resources that we don't. And if you ask them on it, you can tell they're muddled and they've never thought about it, and they might come and say, okay, I guess it gets it from taxes, but who will pay for the poor? You're already paying for the poor. You just have them stealing it from you, wasting 90% on a bureaucracy, and then giving it to their cousin and pretending he was poor.
Which kills more jobs, which makes more people poor.
Which makes a giant disaster. We're already doing it. We're already paying for all of it. We're building the roads. The politicians aren't building the roads. We're paying for it, but they're not paying for it. So the idea that we need this group of violent middlemen, and that somehow we couldn't do it without them, is just silly. The only reason people believe that is because they really, in their head, they have this muddled notion that government really is something that has superhuman rights and powers and resources that us mere mortals couldn't possibly do. It's just silly. And when you overcome that, you realize, why on earth would we need them for anything?
Well, I thought I could get you through a top 5, but I kind of put you on the spot there. I know it's kind of hard to just think of them off the top of the head. But I really appreciate you joining us. And where can people find more of your work and support the work you do? I know most anarchists know who you are, but for those out there that are just learning about you for the first time, where can they find more of your work?
I guess the easiest answer is my YouTube channel. It's just youtube.com/Larken Rose, LARKENROC. And there's a whole bunch of videos there, which are fun. And then my books, my website is larkenrose.com. And my book, The Most Dangerous Superstition, is there. It's also on Amazon. There's a Kindle version on Amazon now. And that's the most important thing I've ever written. And it really digs to the heart of authoritarianism and demonstrates why this really is just a stupid, dangerous superstition that we've been taught to believe. And the problem isn't that the world is filled with evil people. The problem is the world is filled with good people who fell for this one really dumb lie. And as a result, they're advocating and committing and supporting mass evil.
Incredibly put. Thank you very much for talking with us, and we hope to talk with you again.
Thank you.